Marcus Reed moved through the polished floors of Le Jardin Noir with quiet precision, though tonight every step felt like an exercise in endurance rather than skill. The fine china clinked under his hands, wine glasses gleamed under the soft chandelier light, and the low hum of Manhattan's elite conversations brushed past him like cold wind. Once a respected diplomat and expert in Sino-American relations, Marcus now wore a crisp white shirt and black vest, serving courses to people who had no idea he had once sat across from presidents and business magnates, negotiating deals that shaped international policy. The irony was not lost on him, but he maintained a calm, professional demeanor, concealing the bitterness that flickered beneath his measured movements. Jinyu Li entered with the confidence of someone used to being feared and admired in equal measure. Her designer heels clicked against marble as her entourage whispered and laughed at shared inside jokes, their eyes glinting with entitlement. Marcus noticed her gaze land on him, sharp and appraising, like someone evaluating a painting that didn't belong in the gallery. She raised an eyebrow and smirked, speaking in English, though every word was laced with condescension. "Oh, look at him. A waiter? I never thought I'd see someone like that here." Her tone implied he was beneath her notice, yet she spoke loudly enough for her companions to hear, inviting their laughter. The humiliation stung like a cold slap, but Marcus restrained himself. He had been underestimated before, often by those who assumed appearances reflected capability. Around him, other diners whispered and laughed softly, adding a subtle pressure, a chorus of approval for her cruelty. Marcus felt the familiar heat of anger rise, yet he breathed slowly, reminding himself why he was here. This was not a stage for retaliation. It was a gathering ground for patience, observation, and careful planning. Jinyu's remarks escalated with every tray he carried. "Is he always this slow?" she asked, her voice dripping with derision. "I've never seen someone spill so much, even carrying nothing more than a plate of salad." Her laughter rang through the private corner of the restaurant, sharp and deliberate. Marcus's hands remained steady as he served, but his mind catalogued each insult with meticulous care. Every gesture she made, every scoff or smirk, became evidence he would later use not just against her, but to reclaim his dignity. As the evening progressed, Jinyu's amusement shifted into cruelty. She demanded he perform small, demeaning gestures, such as bending to refill her glass while she leaned back with a mocking expression, or balancing dishes in a manner that drew attention to every minor stumble. The other diners, assuming this was harmless entertainment, giggled and whispered, oblivious to the depth of injustice they were witnessing. Marcus endured silently, masking the storm of indignation brewing inside him. Inwardly, he reminded himself of the strength he had cultivated over years of diplomacy, the ability to remain composed, to observe, and to act at the right moment. Despite the mockery, Marcus maintained an outward serenity. He moved deliberately, ensuring every pour, every plate, was precise, while mentally cataloging the ways Jinyu humiliated him. She assumed her wealth and status granted her immunity, that no one present could challenge her arrogance. But Marcus's mind worked like a steel trap, noting the subtle cues in her behavior, the inconsistencies in her stories, and the arrogance that could eventually be her undoing. The night became a battlefield of patience versus pride, where he held every humiliation in check, knowing the eventual revelation of his true identity would be far more devastating than any insult she could levy now. Even as Jinyu ordered a series of increasingly outrageous demands, including asking Marcus to entertain her companions with small, demeaning tricks, he complied with careful precision, hiding both his expertise and his intelligence behind the facade of a humble waiter. The absurdity of the situation, the irony of being mocked by someone whose company had once benefited from his diplomacy, was not lost on him. Every action, every forced bow or careful step became part of a larger plan to endure, document, and ultimately expose the cruelty hidden behind her opulent exterior. By the time the dinner approached its peak, Marcus had silently recorded enough evidence to make anyone in a position of authority take notice. Jinyu's laughter, once a simple expression of arrogance, had become a map of her moral failings. He cataloged not just her words, but her tone, her gestures, and the way her companion's laughter reinforced her belief that money and status made her untouchable. Marcus moved among the tables, invisible yet acutely aware of every glance, every whispered remark, understanding that patience and observation were his allies tonight. Even as the restaurant filled with clinking glasses and polite applause for various toasts, Marcus's mind remained focused. He imagined the eventual moment when Jinyu would be confronted not by wealth or power, but by truth and evidence she could neither manipulate nor escape. Every insult she threw in his direction, every scoff or mocking gesture, was a building block for the reckoning he envisioned. By enduring silently, by moving with grace despite humiliation, he was already laying the groundwork for a victory far more satisfying than any immediate retaliation. The night carried on, each hour a testament to Marcus's endurance. While Jinyu remained oblivious, ensconced in her self-importance, Marcus understood that the ultimate leverage lay in restraint, in the quiet accumulation of truth. And as he cleared the final dishes, delivering them with the same meticulous care that had defined the evening, he allowed a private thought to cross his mind. The people who mock without awareness are often the ones most unprepared for the consequences of their arrogance. And tonight, he would ensure that lesson was learned. Marcus Reed continued to serve with the same quiet precision, but beneath the calm surface, his mind was alert, cataloging every gesture, every word, and every inflection. Jinyu Li's arrogance had escalated, and her contempt for him had shifted from veiled mockery to outright cruelty. She had begun taking out her phone, recording him subtly under the pretense of capturing her own dining experience, smirking as she spoke to her friends about the exotic novelty of the waiter's behavior. What she did not realize, however, was that Marcus had come prepared. His small earpiece and discreet recording device captured every insult, every mocking comment, and every demeaning laugh. Each word she spoke was being documented, each gesture saved as proof that her wealth and power did not make her immune to accountability. The environment around them blurred into insignificance. The clinking of plates, the low hum of conversation, and the faint strains of a pianist playing in the corner became background noise compared to the sharpness of Jinyu's remarks. She criticized his posture, mocked his voice, and even commented on the color of his skin, assuming that he could not understand her subtleties. Marcus did understand, of course, and with each insult, he reinforced his resolve. He reminded himself that patience was the true weapon here, and that every recorded moment brought him closer to justice. He carefully noted how she flaunted her connections, name-dropping international partners, speaking arrogantly about deals she had acquired through methods that Marcus knew were unethical and, in some cases, illegal. As the evening progressed, Marcus observed that Jinyu's need to humiliate him seemed to intensify when her companions laughed, feeding her sense of invulnerability. She leaned back in her chair, swirling her wine glass and instructing him to carry multiple plates at once, then purposefully spilling a little sauce to make him flinch. Each small, intentional act was recorded meticulously. He moved gracefully, ensuring that no one noticed her cruelty, all while capturing the evidence that would later reveal the depth of her arrogance. Inwardly, he admired his own control. The discipline he had cultivated through years of high-stakes diplomacy now served him in a very different kind of arena, one where endurance, observation, and intelligence outweighed brute strength or immediate confrontation. Marcus had learned to read people as naturally as breathing. He saw the telltale signs of Jinyu's self-importance, the micro-expressions of impatience, the barely suppressed sighs when her companions whispered something she didn't like, the flicker of irritation when she realized someone else received attention. He cataloged these moments with precision, aware that they would later serve to corroborate the recordings he was sending to his mentor and the relevant authorities. He knew that her charm and wealth often disguised her manipulative tendencies, and now he had the evidence to dismantle her carefully constructed persona. Her cruelty became bolder as the night continued. Jinyu began ordering Marcus to perform ridiculous gestures, asking him to bow exaggeratedly while delivering dishes, to smile in a way she deemed entertaining, and even to engage in mocking mimicry, suggesting he imitate animals as part of some demeaning joke. Around her, the diners were polite, some clearly entertained by her antics, while others gave polite nods, unaware of the deeper humiliation being inflicted. Marcus endured each task with a calm exterior, inwardly documenting not only her words but the subtle ways in which her actions reflected prejudice and entitlement. He thought carefully about his responses, ensuring that even when he appeared compliant, he maintained control of the narrative through the recordings. Marcus also noticed inconsistencies in her stories, subtle hints of unethical behavior hidden beneath her confident veneer. She bragged about contracts she had secured abroad, her methods carefully obscured, yet Marcus's trained eye could detect the corners she had cut and the ethical boundaries she had crossed. Each mention, every boast, was meticulously recorded, creating a detailed tapestry of evidence that would soon illuminate a side of Jianyu Li the world had never seen. He even observed how she subtly manipulated her companions, exploiting their admiration to bolster her sense of supremacy. Marcus cataloged everything, not as revenge, but as proof that arrogance and power do not equal infallibility. Throughout the evening, Marcus kept a steady rhythm, balancing the physical demands of the job with the mental challenge of surveillance. He knew that revealing his knowledge too soon could compromise his position. The recordings had to be perfect, capturing her prejudice, her arrogance, and her unethical boasting in a way that left no room for deniability. His thoughts were methodical. Every insult, every derogatory statement about Americans, black people, or anyone she considered beneath her, was noted in his mind and secured in digital evidence. He understood the importance of patience and waiting for the right moment when truth could outshine arrogance in a manner that would resonate universally. There were moments when his endurance wavered. Jinyu's laughter could feel sharp enough to cut through steel, and her persistent mockery tested the limits of his composure. Yet each time he felt the tension rise, he reminded himself why he had endured this far: to expose injustice, to protect the dignity of others, and to reclaim his own. In those quiet mental pauses, he pictured the eventual confrontation when the arrogance of wealth and power would collide with integrity and truth. That image carried him forward, allowing him to respond with grace, even as Jinyu attempted ever more humiliating gestures to entertain her companions. By the time the dinner began winding down, Marcus had compiled hours of evidence, enough to clearly demonstrate Jinyu's cruelty, her prejudice, and her unethical dealings abroad. He had captured her demeanor, her gestures, and her words with painstaking accuracy. Every recording was a piece of a puzzle, each moment contributing to the inevitable revelation that would upend her carefully constructed image of superiority. Marcus understood that patience had been his greatest tool. By allowing her to believe she had control, he ensured that when the truth emerged, it would hit with the force of undeniable clarity. Finally, as Jinyu dismissed him with a wave, laughing about a minor mishap, Marcus offered a subtle smile that went unnoticed. Inwardly, he felt a quiet satisfaction. The night had tested his patience, his endurance, and his capacity for restraint, but it had also provided him with the raw material to reclaim his dignity and confront arrogance with undeniable truth. Each insult, each demeaning demand, had been a step toward the reckoning that would soon come. He walked away, poised and composed, knowing that the real power lay not in the immediate response, but in the strategic accumulation of evidence that could not be ignored. Marcus Reed stood silently for a moment, the final echo of Jinyu Li's laughter fading behind him as the evening wound down. Around the exclusive restaurant, soft conversations and polite clinks of glass created a false sense of calm. Yet beneath that calm, tension was about to shift dramatically. He had endured the night with patience, recorded every insult, documented every demeaning gesture, and now the time for subtlety was ending. What Jinyu assumed was subservience, weakness, and ignorance would soon become the stage for a revelation that no one in the room would forget. She returned to him, her arrogance heightened by the belief that he had merely been another entertainer, a black waiter who would endure her whims with a polite smile. "You've been so entertaining tonight," she said, her tone mocking, "but I think you need to dance for us, like a monkey. Everyone would love it." The group around her laughed softly, the sound hollow and anticipatory. Marcus felt the tension rise in the room, the air thick with the expectation of humiliation. And then, slowly, deliberately, he spoke. I believe you misunderstand me, he said, his voice calm, carrying the weight of authority and unshakable composure. All eyes turned toward him as he continued. I understand everything you've been saying tonight. Every insult, every comment about my abilities, my appearance, and my nationality, I have recorded it all. Every moment has been documented. A silence fell, sharp and electric, cutting through the polite hum of the restaurant. Jinyu's expression faltered, her eyes narrowing as disbelief crept in. You understand? She asked, her voice shaky now, betraying the first cracks in her carefully constructed facade. Marcus walked slowly toward her table, the calmness in his movements contrasting sharply with the chaos that had filled the evening. Yes, I understand, he said firmly. I am fluent in Mandarin, and your words, your arrogance, your prejudice, they are all recorded. Not just for myself, but for people who hold you accountable. Your contracts, your unethical dealings, and your corruption are now documented, and your attempts to humiliate me have only exposed your own character to scrutiny. Whispers rippled through the room. The diners who had previously laughed now turned their eyes toward her, the social power dynamics shifting with a quiet inevitability. Jinyu's face paled, her self-assured smirk replaced by shock and panic. She stumbled over words, trying to regain control, but Marcus's presence and calm authority made it impossible. You think this matters? She snapped, though the sharpness in her voice faltered. I am untouchable, my influence, Marcus interrupted gently but firmly. Influence does not exempt you from accountability. Wealth does not shield you from truth. And arrogance does not erase responsibility. He paused, letting the words resonate across the table and into the quiet murmur of the restaurant. Then he revealed more. I have shared every recording with Dr. Evelyn Chang, my former mentor, and with the Chinese Business Association. Your reputation, your international contracts, and your position in your family's company are now at risk. This isn't vengeance. It's the natural consequence of your actions. The room was utterly silent. Jinyu's companions, once loyal witnesses to her arrogance, now exchanged uncertain glances, understanding for the first time that their complicity had cost them credibility as well. Marcus continued, walking through the implications with calm precision. You have consistently misjudged people based on appearance, underestimated diligence, and assumed entitlement equaled respect. Tonight, that assumption has been shattered. Every insult you uttered is now evidence of your prejudice. Every gesture you made to demean or belittle has contributed to a record that cannot be ignored. The subtle trembling in her hands betrayed her growing panic. She had treated him as invisible, assuming he lacked influence, knowledge, and the means to respond. But Marcus had been patient, strategic, and deliberate. Now, the culmination of that patience was undeniable. Leaning slightly forward, Marcus concluded, I once worked on diplomatic agreements that directly benefited your company, agreements you now find yourself mocking without realizing who I am. The irony is not lost on me. What you intended as entertainment has become the vehicle of your own exposure. Prejudice, arrogance, and unethical behavior always have consequences. I am here to ensure those consequences are understood. The room remained silent, the weight of his words pressing on everyone present. Jinyu Li's face had shifted from disbelief to panic, and she could no longer control the narrative she had so arrogantly attempted to dominate. In the aftermath, the ripple effect was immediate. Marcus watched as Jinyu's reputation began to unravel quietly but irrevocably. The recordings were shared, the evidence undeniable. Her international business partners, once eager to associate with her, began questioning her integrity and judgment. Internally, her family confronted the ethical lapses that had long been masked by wealth, and professionally, she faced scrutiny that could no longer be dismissed as rumor. Meanwhile, Marcus, though still formally a waiter that night, reclaimed his dignity and visibility, his expertise and moral character now shining unmistakably. He did not gloat. Instead, he moved with the quiet grace that had defined his career, composed, measured, and principled. Marcus became a symbol of endurance and integrity, demonstrating that character and intellect outweigh status and wealth. Through calm persistence, meticulous documentation, and strategic patience, he had turned humiliation into a transformative moment not only for himself, but as a lesson to everyone who believed that power alone could protect them from accountability. The final moments in the restaurant were poignant. Jinyu sat silently, realizing for the first time that her actions had consequences beyond immediate amusement or ego. Marcus left the table with the same deliberate precision he had maintained all evening, embodying calm strength. Patrons whispered among themselves, some in awe, some in reflective discomfort, as the lesson of humility and accountability sank in. Marcus's journey from deception and insult to vindication became a quietly powerful testament. The strength of patience, intelligence, and dignity could topple arrogance, and that true power lies in I. It became more than a personal triumph. It was a reminder that true strength is measured by character, patience, and integrity, not by wealth or status. Humiliation, prejudice, and arrogance may feel powerful in the moment, but careful observation, endurance, and strategic action reveal the lasting consequences of such behavior. His calm determination turned injustice into accountability, demonstrating that dignity can outshine cruelty. For viewers, it is a lesson to act with patience, speak truth, and value empathy. Remember, you've got this kindness, wisdom, and courage that always carry more power than mockery, arrogance, or temporary status. Like the video, subscribe, share, and comment your thoughts.